The fact is, I realized I can only do so much. Never had it occur to me before then, because whenever I set my mind to do something, I just do it. If the thought was, oh, I'll just run 5 practices and I'll go in between 5 practices or 15 or 35, who knows, no problem. The number didn't matter to me. I was just like, I can do it. I realized, wow, I have time now. This is nice. I've bit off more than I can chew. Now that I can chew what I've bit off, I'm not going to refit more into my mouth because I can only do so much. I can only be so many places. And honestly, with 3 kids, I like coaching, the girls of soccer. I like going to my son's, band concert. I like, helping out with X and Y and Z. So I still have stuff that I want to do. And then it came back to that Benjamin Franklin's, the day is worth more than the dollar.
Good day, everyone. This is Dr. David Phelps of the Freedom Founders Mastermind Community and the Dentist Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Really glad to bring to you today a conversation I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I got a chance to meet in person for the first time Dr. Chad Johnson, who is here with us today. Chad he's a younger doc, which I appreciate, and he's also really, I say he's on the frontier of his own experience. And I think that's where we all want to be when we set out on the pathway to getting the education, the skill sets, the licenses, the board exams, out into our first business, the practice. And we all wanted to have this experience that we get to define for ourselves. And there's different pathways to go. That's what's so fun about being in business, being in practice, is you can choose location, you can choose practice style, you can choose subspecialization, so many ways to go. And Chad has just got an interesting story I want to bring to you. So Chad, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, Victoria had mentioned you a few years ago, so I've been lurking, and it was good to meet you in person. So, and Victoria does say hi, but she had first introduced me to your name, and so I looked it up in the Dallas area, but I've just kind of been on the fringe at looking at you guys' stuff. I did the blueprint workshop that you did. Was it maybe November or December? That was very intriguing, and I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Victoria and I and Bruce Baird, we'll talk a little bit about PDA because I've been big fans of theirs as well. And
yeah,
we've been back a lot of years. I kidded Victoria when I saw her in Dallas earlier this spring. I kidded her. I said, Victoria, you're so famous to me. I still have on my shelf VHS tapes of you teaching, and she loved that. So it's true. I was following her many years ago,
right,
on her bandwagon. So all right, let me get a little bit of background so people know, Chad, a little bit about who you are, and then we can jump in conversation.
Sure.
So Chad Johnson, DDS degree, also a fellow in the AGD. He's a dentist in the Des Moines area. He is a member of the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, the American Academy of Facial Aesthetics, the Academy of Laser Dentistry, and he's a fellow of the Academy of General Dentistry, as I said. Former Iowa AGD chapter president, the diplomat of the International Dental Implant Association, involved with the CEREC Mentor Group from 2013 to 2018, served as a CEREC trainer for other dentists in Iowa. Chad and his wife, Sarah, have 3 children, Gabe, Sophia, and Daphne. He's an active member of his church, enjoys swimming, cycling, photography, traveling, and coaching Little League. In 2020, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, in 2020, he opened his second office, Veranda Dentistry Johnson. He is on the faculty for Productive Dentist Academy, consulting and marketing agency hubbed out of Dallas, through which he co-hosts a weekly podcast, Everyday Practices Dental Podcast.
That's right.
That's quite a resume for a young guy. I'm impressed. I guess the first question I've got for you is if you found a discipline to how you get everything done you need to get done and still be present with your family. That's probably a question you get a lot because you are very active. So how do you manage all of that? Is there a trick? Is there some hacks you use? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, these are going to be 2 dumb little tricks that I use, but one is I live by Google Calendar. When Google Calendar tells me to be somewhere or to do something, I live by Google Calendar. And the cool thing is I can be in the present whenever, because if people are like, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know, whatever my Google Calendar tells me to do. The other thing is, this sounds crazy, but on my phone, I switched companies, and when I switched carriers, it said, you haven't set up your voicemail yet. Press 1 to set up your voicemail. And I thought, wait a second, I don't want to set up my voicemail. Like, it's an option. Like, in other words, I'm not opted in yet. And so I never signed up for the voicemail. So when people call and they say, hey, your voicemail isn't set up. I'm like, I know, I don't want a voicemail because I don't know, voicemails just take too long and stuff like that. It's a very almost millennial thing. I was born in 79. I'm not exactly a millennial, but I can very much identify with that. I don't have voicemail. So when people are like, hey, I want to leave you a message, I'm like, you're not going to be able to. So
it's perfect. Well, because I'm a little bit older than you, and voicemail was a big thing in our day. My generation kind of grew up with voicemail. I'm with you. I'm not a fan of it, but we grew up with it. In fact, just to date myself, Chad, and a lot of people listening today, it was a big deal when we could first buy. This is before smartphones. This is going way back where we just had inline phones, and so we were able to buy. This is back in the like 80s. When we could actually buy a cassette phone recorder, and they were big. They were a big chunk. You put it. I mean, you had
right near your door.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You plan that sucker down, and it was hooked up, and it would get your calls. So you come home from work or whatever, and you'd sit down, and it'd have a little light and blink and let you know that it had messages. You'd have to rewind it, and then you play through each message, and you could see that on Seinfeld. If you watch Seinfeld series, you can.
That's it.
Seinfeld.
Yes, yeah. And you would record your message like, "Hi, this is Chad. You've called me at blank, blank, blank." And oh yeah, I totally remember those. But you know what? Voicemail was great until a text came. Like all of a sudden, when text first came out, I was like, "This is stupid." And then I realized, wait a second, I could read through someone's text quicker than they can say, "Well, I thought it'd be quicker if I called and explained." It's like, no, it's not. No. Just.
That's what I say too. No, I don't need all that. Just cut to the chase. So we're on the same page. Well, I won't give out my cell number because I don't want anybody calling it. But after this, I'll give you my cell. You can call, and I did set up a voicemail, but I think you'll appreciate it for my generation. I'll give it to you.
Just for comedic value. Okay.
How's that? All right.
That's a deal. Heck yeah.
Yeah, you have more of a multi-generational approach to how we handle messaging. All right. Well, that's good. That's fun. I appreciate you giving that. Those are two very good hacks. I use Google Calendar all the time too. And you're right. When it's already there, you could be in the present. You don't have to think about, well, what's coming up tomorrow. It's just like, yep, it's there.
And I set recurring things. I set at 5 o'clock because we're just an early farm community kind of eating family. At 5 o'clock, family dinner. I mean, it's on there. Every Sunday night, it says take out the trash, and every other week it says take out the recycling. Seriously, once a month I put on there to change the air filter. I never forget to change air filters. Why? I carve in time to do it. But then I'm not, like, I don't know. I just, when I see I've got free time, it's free time. So.
Well, Sarah must just think you are like the husband of her dreams. I'm sure she thinks that anyway. For you,
I hope so. And I wish so. I don't know if that's whatever,
Well, if it's not, I'm just going to tell her, get into his calendar and put on there what you need.
She does.
She does anyway.
She does. Absolutely. If it's like, hey, pick up milk on the way home. She used to send a text at 7 a.m., while I was working, let's say, hey, pick up some milk. And I'd be like, yeah, sure. Come home at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And she's like, where's the milk? And I'm like, okay, crud. I remember saying yes, but can you put it into the calendar at 4 o'clock, go get milk? And I'm like, okay, it's time to go get milk. So
tells you what to do. All right, good. Well, let's get into, I want to get a little bit of your ascendancy, into practice. When you graduated school, what was your first step? Where did you go? What was that like?
So I opened up right out of school, like my own shop. And so that was something that was 2005. And I really think that I got a loan approved in 2003, maybe going into 2004. I didn't even have a dental license yet, but I just went to the bank across the street. And at that point, a handshake was, the guy looked over my business plan. I told him, I basically had all my ducks in a row with SBA kind of planning. You can look that up. Like if you Google SBA business plan, you can actually even go over that with SBA people, and they worked that through with me. And so I went in there looking like I pretty much knew what I was talking about, I guess. And, I was asking for $426,000, and he said, you know what? All right, so let's give you the $426,000. At that number at this time, doesn't that almost, blow your mind? I'm going to start a practice for $426,000. And then he said, but I'm going to spot you another couple $100,000 just to make sure you've got a line of credit to. And I was like, I won't use it. Fact is, I ended up using every dime of it. Because I think if he would have given me 2,000, I would have used 2,000. If he gave me 2 million, I would have used 2 million. So he, that got me started, and it took me, by the time I expanded into the next suite over and, did other stuff and this and that, it took me 15 years to have everything paid off for, like all my loans and stuff like that for equipment and jazz like that. Then when I got that paid off, which was 2019, so 14 years, whatever, going into 2019, I was looking at expanding my brand. I was like, I've got a good thing going here. In essence, and is this okay? I mean, I'm not rambling too much. This is okay?
No.
Okay.
It's very good.
So,
I was just going to comment and say, so you got your debt paid off in 2019, then you decided it was time to go back into debt.
Double down. Correct. I was,
yeah. Right.
There was part of me that was like, should I rest on my laurels and just like, cause at that point I was like, I could be on easy street now.
Right.
And that would kind of be nice. Or I thought, should I just, I at the time I'm like, okay, I'm 40, should I maybe just double down and cause my thought was, could I reproduce this brand to a bigger level, kind of like make my own DSO? Or at least, like a mini DSO kind of thing. That's kind of what I was aiming for.
Yeah, I think that's important to stop right there because that's super common. I mean, I can say that I was the same way. When you do something good, you build something up. In this fact, you had gotten to the point where you paid off the debt. So you like you said, it's kind of like easy street right now. What is it? I'm not pointing at you. I'm saying all of us. What is it that compels us? And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying what kind of compels us. Do you believe to say I could do more? I could, expand or whatever. What do you think compels us to do that?
I had time. So like, because I had just turned 40, I thought, okay, I seriously have another 20 or 25 years. Let's say that I mess up. I have time to correct, so if I was 65, there's no way I would have been like, yeah, let's double down. Now, if there's someone out there that did, get more power to you. But at age 25, you can take a ton of risk. At age 40, you can take a little risk. But you want to start slowing that risk down over time. And I think that's where I was just like, I'm in essence where I wasn't even at I always thought when I graduated dental school at 25 and I thought I'm going to practice for 40 years. And so I wasn't right at the 20, where am I right now? I'm just coming up on the 20-year mark in a couple of years. And so I wasn't even, I was at the 14, 15 year mark. And I thought, I'm not even at halftime yet, so like, it's not even the halftime show. I can, take some risk, but I did weigh that out. I was just like, is this worth it? Or, and then I thought, well, here's the risk reward trade-off too. This was the next thing was I was like, what if I end up having 3 successful practices that I could turn into 10? And what if my model, it proves to be, worth its while? So I looked at buying 2 practices. I was actually going to only buy 1 and I couldn't decide between 2 of them. And I thought, well, why not? And against all consulting wisdom, Victoria included, she was just like, Chad, I've done this before. Don't do it, but you're going to do it anyway. So I'll help you through it. And that's like what it came down to. But this was, to keep in mind for the listeners, this was the fall of 2019. Summer, maybe even, that I was, looking at getting these a couple practices or 1 practice, who knows? It turned out to be 2. And both of them were a 20-minute drive from each other in kind of a triangle around the city. East side was my original, north side and west side were going to be the new ones. And so I thought, well, I'll buy these, get started. And, if they pan out for me, what if this triples my income? I don't know, like, let's give this a go. And so that's really kind of what the risk reward weighing out was about for me.
And when
and this is going into COVID. So like, that's what I was leading up to was, this was fall of 2019. And then I signed contracts for both of these and then COVID hits. So
you said that 1 turned out to be good. Another, the other one, the third one, not so. And you decided before too long, just to pull up roots and, call it a day on that one.
That's right. So I kept the north side practice open for 18 months. I had associates that were helping me there at my original office and at the new office. I kind of would spread my time between the 3, and just the patient load when COVID hit. This practice was only open 1.5 days a week when I bought it. And so my goal was to, get it busy. And then here's the next thing, David, that you and I were talking about before we hit record. But when COVID hit, I sent a letter to my last insurance company saying, I'm out. I'm doing my 60 days and I'm out.
Right.
And because I thought, who knows how long this place is going to be closed. Let's take advantage of being closed by, I'll pay my employees to answer phone calls from angry patients because I'm leaving network. So it's a win-win, and we can answer all those phones and, talk it over with patients and stuff like that. So by the time we open back up, because who knows when that's going to be, for Iowa, we were closed 9 weeks. But so by the time we open back up, who knows, maybe I'll be completely out of network the day that I open back up. And indeed it was 9 weeks. Your 60 days was how long you had to give them. So by the next time I was open, I was fee for service.
And there was a lot of pent up demand for all dentists because of the closure, right?
Yep.
So initially you had people in the door, you knocked out all the insurance companies. So you're thinking, well, this is a good time to do that. I agree. A smart move to handle that while your staff could manage the conversations. You open back up again. You've got people coming in as you'd expect. Demand is there. But did you ever see a drop off?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Yep. So the way I looked at it from that Kodak study, my goal was to figure out, okay, if I'm getting paid 61% from 100% of my existing patients, what if alternatively I was getting paid 100% by 61% of my patients? So my math, my over under was, I was just like, I could lose 40% of my patients and still be okay.
Right.
If someone has a really competitive area where their fees, let's, for example, Houston, Miami, those are two to name that I've talked specifically with dentists, in those markets where they're like, Chad, I get paid, my UCR is like my fee. Like it's, and I'm like, I'm happy with what they're paying me. Then this is going to be tough it's going to be a tough sell. But when you're getting paid 61%, then that made it easy, because I was like, you're telling me I could almost lose half my patients and I'd be fine. So here's the problem. I mean, to be transparent, that's indeed what happened. I bet I lost, let's say 40% of my patients. But what it afforded me was, from then on, any patient that calls with Cigna or Delta or Aetna or Principal or who knows, any of those, if they're calling because they want to come to us because of brand loyalty to us, then they're going to be a great patient because they're out of network and they see the value in coming to us. They're not coming to us because, like, well, it's very unflattering, but a lot of times, it was heart-wrenching that patients would leave that you thought loved you, and they might like kind of love you. But, like, I'm just like, man, my second grade teacher's leaving me because, because of $5. It's like that doesn't make you feel good. And I think a lot of dentists are afraid of the fact that their patients aren't as in love with them as they think they are. But that's honestly what I think it comes down to, because otherwise we'd all leave network.
Yeah, no, it's truthful. And I think it is hard for us, pride and ego. I think
it is big time.
Yeah, we do the best. We try to give great experiences. I think probably most of the dentists do that. And yes, to find out that people can change their loyalty, as you said, over $5, a copay, that hurts deep inside. And I think we just have to understand that's just human behavior, and not to take it personally, which is really hard not to do.
I would liken it to a workout. If you said, man, if I work out, my muscles are going to be sore. Yeah, but if you keep working out, you're going to get stronger muscles. And the thing that I liken it to is I've got a thicker skin from this. I mean, I've just, like, when people, I'll see an email come through that's a carbon copy of the admin and the admin email saying, hey, we're leaving, I'm just like, well, I wish them the best, and back 5 years ago, I would have been like, well, I wish them the best, but I kind of wish they'd stay. And these days I just go, I mean, I wish they'd stay, but I wish them luck. They can always come back. And I've just got a tougher skin about it, because I'm a hometown boy. I grew up a mile up the road from here. So it depending on your perception of it and the story you tell yourself, it could hurt my feelings a lot. I mean, it's just like, I'm glad my wife at least sticks, but she gets free work. So she, that's tough luck for her.
That's right. She's not going to give that up.
No, she's going to take that.
I think you've got her. I think you got her.
Loyal patient.
A very loyal patient. All right. So as you were expanding up and buying the additional 2 practices pre-COVID, got into COVID. Now you had, at that point, before you canceled insurance company contracts. How many associates were you working up to manage the other?
At that point, I had 4 associates.
Had four. And that was the first time that you had ramped up to that many associates, I assume?
Yes, because having bought 2 new practices, I had one working full-time at the one and a half working at the north side one, 1.5-ish working here at my Pleasant Hill office. And those numbers would have worked for PPO. Okay. The west side practice that I bought, Veranda Dentistry Johnston, already was fee for service. And I think that's what made the transition easier. So, having bought a practice but here's the thing, if you go back to January when I was buying this, it wasn't my intention to switch my original Veranda Dentistry office to a fee for service. This was just, we had been dropping networks over the past 5 years, this and that, and we were on our last one. But Delta also was a huge part, I don't know, 70% of our patient pool. So if people say, well, you don't know my area, I'm like, listen, Des Moines, Iowa is definitely insurance capital. I mean, we're heavy in insurance, and a lot of the workers, employees, neighbors, friends, family, all that stuff, everyone is participating in competitive dental insurance. Right. And so it was very costly for me to do it, but I came to the point where I just burned the ships. I moved on.
So notwithstanding the caveat you gave about being in a competitive marketplace, yep. Houston, Miami, for example, where UCR is pretty much the fee. So notwithstanding that exemption, then what you tell a lot of dentists is to burn it down. I mean, you've got to have certain things in place, of course, but I'm saying, you're saying, because you did the math, you said, I can lose up to 40%. And you said you pretty much lost about 40%.
Yeah.
So those, we know those numbers work. It's math. It's math at this point in that regard.
It made it objective.
Yes, it made it objective. And so let's just compare and contrast. Even if you didn't have COVID and the other practices would have gotten off the ground and wouldn't have to deal with that, knowing what you know now, would you, if that opportunity came to expand again at this point? Now you have 2 practices. You kept the one, and
correct. After 18 months, we closed the north side one. Yes.
My question to you is there still a desire for you to expand the brand?
Not now.
Okay. Tell us why. What's the lesson there? What did you learn? What?
Sure. So having closed the north side one, and it was basically every month, it was just kind of a loss as it was sitting there fallow for all the purposes. It was just kind of sitting there. And I was just like, when I go there, I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs. I'm helping the associate, on a case, maybe this and that, but I'm not, making tooth dust. I'm not, being productive as a dentist. And so I thought I really need to be spending my time at the Johnston office and at the Pleasant Hill office, the original office. And so if I could spend all my time at the offices that actually have patient demand, then, I could actually pay the bill for the north side one, even if it just sits there. So that's what I did for 18 months. And then I finally was like, we're just going to close this north side one. And then, even at a loss. But I think it made me gun shy to expand the brand. That might be too easy to say. David, I think the fact is I realized I can only do so much. Never had it occurred to me before then, because whenever I set my mind to do something, I just do it. And if the thought was, I'll just run 5 practices and I'll go in between 5 practices or 15 or 35, who knows? And no problem. The number didn't matter to me. I was just like, I can do it. It crossed my mind to get like one of those little drone helicopter things that you could fly between, and I wouldn't have to do the streets. I don't know. I tried thinking of every which way that I could heliport between offices quicker and make best use of my time. But the fact was, at some point I realized, it was actually when I sold the north side one that I realized, wow, I have time now, because I was so busy with 3 that when I dialed it back to 2, I was like, no, this is nice. I've bit off more than I can chew. Now that I can chew what I've bit off, I'm not going to refit more into my mouth because I can only do so much. I can only be so many places. And honestly, with 3 kids, I like coaching, the girls of soccer. I like going to my son's, band concert. I like, helping out with X and Y and Z. And I do indeed help out with X and Y and Z kind of stuff. So I still have stuff that I want to do. And it came back to that Benjamin Franklin's, the day is worth more than the dollar.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you could talk about that, because I think, again, aspirationally, so many of us, we want to build something. We want to expand it. You said, what if I could triple my income, right?
Right.
And to that end, we've all done that. And your point is well stated. And it's what I tell a lot of people that, I have the privilege to, coach, consult today, is what is this really all about? I mean, other than taking our skill set and helping people. Okay, I got that. But beyond that, yes, we want to provide for our family financially. Okay, got that.
Yeah.
And what else? Well, I need to build wealth. Okay. Well, how much wealth? Well, I don't know. I'm just using your words. Well, if I could triple my income. Okay. Well, what does that do? Right? Exactly what does that do? Well, you can do math. So you give me some numbers, say, well, if I do this and I save this in X, Y, Z years, I have this much. Okay. Let's just make up a number and say I'd have $4 million in so many years. Okay. Okay. Now what, Chad?
And what?
Yeah. I keep asking the questions, and what people come back to is, what I really want is to feel like I have enough, air quotes, enough, so I can buy my time back. Oh, now we're getting down to it. Now we can actually say, what do I really want is to have choices and options in my life. Dentistry, what I've been able to build with my skill set, is awesome. It's a way to do that, but how can I transfer that? What's the best way, the fastest way to transfer that back into time?
Right.
Especially when I've got a family and that,
yeah,
right in front of me. I want to coach them and be at band concerts and things like that. Right.
Go on vacation, perhaps. I realized, as the day is worth more than a dollar, that I started your message, your branding altogether of Freedom Founders started resonating all the more with me, because I feel like dentists in one sense are indentured servants that we buy into a system with the promise that it'll be lucrative in the end. That way we can have a freedom and a lifestyle and this and that. But there's a trade-off, right? I mean, you don't get that on day one. I think it's crazy. Like, what's funny is there are some younger dentists that almost, act like on day one that they've arrived, and it's just like, oh, you got the lottery pick or whatever, so you're in the system, but now you have to go out and play the games, the NBA games, the NFL games. You can't just be a draft pick and then, be like, all right, I'm retiring. It's like, well, so your message, and even this message that you just said, it resonated more with me. And I was like, if I built my brand of X amount of offices, 2 offices currently, 3 a couple years ago, who knows if I was trying to build it to 10, I was trying to scale up, and nothing inherently wrong with that. But I realized at some point, if I make this valued out of the price range of anyone looking to buy into it, as opposed to 40 years ago when you would, buy a practice, you'd run it for X years, and then you'd sell it, for a reasonable price. But it was just, I was like, what if I make this worth $10 million? What, dentists coming out of dental school can buy this for $10 million. And so I'm almost building so much value into something that becomes not invaluable, but unvalued. What if I had a diamond that was worth $100 billion? But no one has $100 billion. So is the diamond actually worth $100 billion? And I think I explained that to someone, and they said, actually, some philosopher said it better, like that it's basically the value of something is so much that no one can buy it. Therefore, it's not that value. What if my practices were worth all that, but they're not actually worth it? So all my eggs become in one basket in this, thing that is intangible. It's an intangible asset.
Yeah, no, that's so well said. And I think that hits everybody at some point. I like you, I love when people ask for, younger docs that are coming out of school, or just even, starting dental school, just some basic financial literacy. But what I noticed, there was a thread in some forum somewhere recently, and a young doc who had graduated dental school just last year in 2022, call it May of 2022. And so this was call it January of 2023. What's that? Eight months later. And he posts, and I'm not making fun of him, I'm just saying this is so much the mindset, but he posts, I feel like I'm at the crossroads of my career. Oh, right.
Interesting.
But see, I'm not judging him, because this is a mindset that's being created somewhere. And I think some of that mindset, and as well as I do, There are some that go to dental school to get the training to get into dentistry to see how fast they can get out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so I can go buy a practice, I can roll it up. And again, I'm not saying that that's not a good exit strategy, but at your first year of dentistry practice, you're thinking, how quickly can I get out? And I'm thinking, and then what? Right.
David, though, I think the same A types that are doing that now, because it's an option, they were in dental school when you were in dental school. It's just, did you ever think about that option back then? Did you ever think like in the 80s, like I'll buy 10 dental practice? So I think it's the same type of person. That's the A type that runs and guns and if somehow, it's always been that way. It's the A type. And it was probably that way 1,000 years ago. If they have the chance, out of serfdom, they're going to take it, traveling from Europe to Americas, and stuff like that. But here we are, a newer generation of dentists, and the ones for sure younger than me, that if they've got a chance, and doggone it, they're going to take it. But at the same time, it might be their demise. I mean, at least 30 years ago, you didn't even have that option. So it was just, you did the normal thing because that was really all you could do.
Yeah, it was very much abnormal to even, there's a few docs that would have like a quote, a satellite practice, which was, a small practice, 20, 30 miles away, that they might either go out there a day or two a week, or they'd stick an associate out there, that kind of thing, which rarely ever made sense. It was not the scale that we see today. And so it wasn't an option. So we just tried to, we typically looked at, this is going to be a career. This is going to be, retire when you're in your 60s. And that's how it went. And most practices, and I'm talking about the 80s to the 90s, which is where I was at. And we rolled along. And certainly you had practices where there were some associates, but they were not even small group practices much at all back then. It was just, this is what you did. So you're right. I think the pathways, there's more alternative pathways. Yeah. I just, if someone really goes into dentistry to see how fast they can get out, I think there's a better way to go. I'm just saying, yeah. you don't need to go that much education, that much debt to just try to roll it up and go out. But anyway, that's not really why I brought you on here. I just want to give you a little bit of that mindset I see, but I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront, is that was not an option back in the 80s or 90s to have the roll up and the multiple exits. Right.
Well, here's a question that I have for you, David, just as a mentee, like if you could mentor me here and let other people, hear your advice. So here I've got all my eggs in a basket, and I'm not sure if, liquidating that asset is a possibility just yet. I think I have my debts paid off. If I remember right, I think I've got 4 years left of the new debts. Okay. So what I'm trying to figure out is if I wanted to diversify within a strategy that you use, because I like that. I'm so on board with you. I told you this. I'm not a 401k fan. You and I see the global and national scene the same way. So that's why you resonate so well with me. So if that's the case, and let's say I was your, nephew or a younger son or younger brother or something like that, that you were like, man, the advice that I'd give him is to do what? And I wonder if the softball pitch would be like to start getting an associate trained into my position, then I, step out, or do I just say, hammer down the next 4 years, get that debt paid off. And then when you've got now some free capital, like that, then I start rolling it towards some real estate. What's your thoughts there?
I think you could do it either way, and a lot of it's going to depend upon you, Chad. Now, I get the feeling that because you already coach and mentor, that you're probably pretty good at that. And so I think there's an opportunity for you, because you have that innate ability to bring the right, associate in, and with the right pathway for them. I'm not saying pathway to ownership. You don't have to do that. It's mentorship. I mean, what you're doing is you're collapsing time for that younger doc to learn what you've learned.
Shortening the curve is what I call it. Yeah.
So I think if you have the right one and you're willing to invest in them, and they see the opportunity to not just, go through the turnstile, which is always something that can happen. I
know.
I think that could definitely be a pathway for you. Again, right person. You could go the other way too. You could say, you know what, I'll just double down and pay off the debt in 4 years, and then I'll have this much rolling off of the practices, that I could start putting into alternative investments, whatever that might be. You can
Yeah.
do it that way. So I think you got both ways. If you're game to do the associate route, find the right associate. I think that could probably speed it up. And the thing you're looking for still at this point in your life, for sure, is balancing the time. Yeah, you can go great guns and go hard and all this, but you don't want to do that right now, and you don't need to do it if you stay prudent about optimizing the current business assets that you have, and you figure that out. You consolidate back to 2 after the COVID thing, and you know how to pay off your debt, and it sounds to me like you've got a pretty good balance right now. So could you optimize the business asset a little bit more in the near term? Yeah, I think you could. Do you have to? Don't think you have to. I think you get to choose.
Right. Well, thanks. I've been trying to, I've been looking forward to picking your brain about that.
Well, it was good. I think, seriously, that's what we have fun doing, is, taking that kind of a conversation, that kind of opportunity, and running through the different filters. You already know how to do that, and we just kind of extrapolate on that and look at what's the best path for you. But I think you've got 2 that you could possibly run down. You might test the one with the associate. Again, you can bide your time. There's no urgency. You don't have to make something happen, which means it's a lot better, because you'll particularly find the right one. But yeah, there's a lot there. Well, hey, great conversation. I'm glad we got.
It has been.
It's just I got to know you better, and the work you're doing both there in Des Moines and also with PDA and Victoria and Bruce, and I think you've got a great thing going, and I love your spirit. It's all really outstanding.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Hopefully this was advantageous for the listeners too, because, we're all kind of in the same boat. You might not have 2 practices or 3 practices, but I think some of this message will, I hate to overuse the word, but that it'll resonate well with you, to where you're just like, no, I could see myself there, or, wow, I was about ready to do that. I'm glad that I thought this through, because it'll allow me to, to make wiser choices than Chad did. Hey, that's shortening the curve again. I'm all for it.
100%. No, I love the conversation, and you took us through what you had to sort out and figure out, and I think it opens the door for other people to do the same thing, and that's what we want to do here. So you did.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You take care. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, buddy.
If you enjoyed watching or learning from this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you have a question about any of my content or this specific video, just please leave a comment down below. And as always, stay focused on your freedom. I'll see you next time.